So anyway, this all goes back to the fall of 2009. I was 22, just trying to get through my last year of college, you know? Me and my two buddies, Jake and Mike. We'd known each other since freshman year. Jake had this old Ford Explorer, the boxy kind, paint peeling on the roof. He swore it would get us anywhere. And I mean, we believed him. We decided to spend a weekend at Red River Gorge. Popular spot, nothing crazy. Just some beers, a fire, maybe some fishing. Jake packed his tent. Mike brought a cooler full of Bud Light. I threw in my sleeping bag and a flashlight that barely worked. The drive was fine. Classic rock on the radio, windows down, pine smell creeping in as we got deeper into the forest. We found a spot near a creek. That was the best part. The sound of the water. Constant, calming, like a whisper that never stopped. We set up the tent, cracked open the first beers, and watched the sun go down behind the trees. I remember thinking how easy life felt in that moment. I didn't know then that the sound of that creek would be the last normal thing I'd ever hear. The fire died out around midnight. We were tired, a little drunk, laughing about stupid stuff. Jake zipped the tent closed. Mike was already snoring. I lay on my back, listening to the water and the rustle of leaves somewhere outside. You know that feeling when you're almost asleep. But something keeps you just awake enough to notice every little sound. That was me. I closed my eyes and thought about nothing. Just the creek, just the dark. And then, I don't know why, I felt like someone was standing outside. Not walking, just standing. And then I heard it. I was almost asleep, you know? That fuzzy place between dreaming and awake. The creek was still going, soft and steady. But something else was there now. A crack. Like someone stepping on a dry branch. Not loud. Close, though. I opened my eyes. Dark inside the tent. Mike was breathing heavy to my left. Jake had stopped snoring. I lay there, staring at the nylon above me. And then another crack. And then footsteps, slow, deliberate. Someone was walking around our tent. I whispered Jake's name. Nothing. I said it again, louder. He mumbled something. I said, "Dude, wake up. Someone's outside." He sat up fast. We both listened. The footsteps kept going. Soft thuds on the dirt and leaves, circling, left to right, right to left, like someone was taking their time. Jake shook Mike awake. Mike said, "What the hell?" And I shushed him. We just sat there in the dark, all three of us, not moving, not speaking. The footsteps went around the tent, one full circle, then another. I could hear the rhythm of it. Step, step, pause, step, step, pause. Mike whispered that maybe it was a deer or a raccoon. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But deer don't walk in circles for 10 minutes. Raccoons don't step that heavy. And the footsteps were too even, too human. I guess we were all thinking the same thing. But no one said it out loud. This went on for over an hour. I'm not exaggerating. I checked my phone. No signal, but the time was there. 2:14 a.m. when it started. 3:21 a.m. when it finally stopped. 67 minutes of someone walking around our tent. Sometimes close enough that I could hear the fabric rustle, sometimes farther back, near the trees. But always circling, always there. Jake put his hand over my arm. His fingers were cold. He leaned in and whispered that we should look. I shook my head. Mike shook his head. So we waited. Like, what else could we do? The footsteps stopped at 3:21. Just stopped. No fading away. No walking off into the woods. 1 second they were there. The next second, nothing. Total silence. Not even the creek sounded right anymore. Jake grabbed the flashlight. I whispered, "Don't." but he was already reaching for the zipper. You know that sound a zipper makes at 2 in the morning? Like a knife cutting through the dark. Jake pulled it slow, but it still screamed. I held my breath. He stuck his head out, shined the mag light around. The beam swept across the trees, the fire pit, the empty field. Nothing. Just the moon in the shadows. He stayed like that for maybe 10 seconds. Then he pulled back in and zipped the tent closed. Mike whispered, "Did you see anything?" Jake said no. No footprints, no person, nothing at all. We sat there in the dark. My heart was still going. I mean, how do you hear footsteps for an hour and then find nobody? Doesn't make sense. Jake said probably just the wind moving branches. I wanted to believe that. But the wind wasn't blowing. The trees were still. And those footsteps weren't wind. I mean, come on. You know the difference. We lay back down. No one slept. We just listened. The creek was still there, but it sounded different now. Wrong. Like the water was trying to cover up something else. Then, about 10 minutes later, the footsteps came back. Not from far away this time. Close. Right outside the tent. Like someone was standing 6 inches from my head. I could hear the dirt shift under their weight. Jake grabbed my arm again. Mike made a sound like a whimper, but quieter. The footsteps started circling again. Faster this time. Not slow and deliberate like before. Angry. Pacing. Back and forth, back and forth. I could hear the rustle of leaves getting crushed, the crack of small sticks. And then silence. Dead silence. Jake whispered that we had to look again. I said no. He said, "What if someone needs help?" And I didn't have an answer for that. So he unzipped the tent again. Same thing. Empty, moon, trees, no one. But here's the thing. When he pulled his head back in, the silence stayed. No footsteps, no pacing, nothing. And it stayed that way until the sun came up. We didn't sleep, we didn't talk. We just lay there, staring at the tent ceiling, waiting for the light. Every few minutes, one of us would look at the others. Like, "Are you still awake?" "Yeah." "Still here?" "But yeah." That was the longest night of my life. When the sun finally hit the tent, I thought it was over. I thought the worst part was behind us. I was wrong. So wrong. So anyway, we got out of the tent around 7. The sun was up, birds were doing their thing. It felt stupid, you know? Like nothing had even happened. Jake was already talking about breakfast. Mike was stretching like he just had the best sleep of his life. But I couldn't shake it. That feeling. Like someone was still watching. We walked toward the creek to wash our faces. And that's when I saw it. About 20 yards from our campsite. A fresh mound of dirt. Not big. Maybe 2 feet across. But it wasn't there the night before. I know it wasn't. I walked closer. The dirt was dark and wet, like someone had dug it up recently, really recently. And then I saw the shoe. A little sneaker. Blue with a white stripe, sticking right out of the top of the mound. Just sitting there, like someone planted it. I stopped. I said, "What the hell is that?" Jake came up behind me. He laughed. Not a happy laugh, a nervous one. He said some other campers are messing with us. Mike nodded. Said, "Yeah, probably just a prank." But the smell. You know that smell of damp earth and rot? Like something dead underneath. Not strong, just there. I couldn't stop smelling it. I said we need to call the police. I mean, that's a kid's shoe. Sticking out of a fresh grave. What else are you supposed to think? Jake rolled his eyes. He said, "Come on, man. It's obviously fake. Someone buried a toy or something to scare people." Mike agreed. He said we'd look like idiots calling the cops over a prank. I said. What if it's not a prank? What if there's actually a kid in there? Silence. Just the creek and the birds. Jake grabbed a stick. He poked the mound. The dirt crumbled a little. The sneaker didn't move. He said, "See? Probably just stuck in there. Some campers are messing with us." I wanted to dig. I wanted to pull that shoe out and see what was underneath. But Jake and Mike kept talking me out of it. They said we'd be late checking out. They said we'd overreacting. They said it was nothing. So anyway, I let it go. I mean, 2 against 1, right? What was I supposed to do? We walked back to the tent. Started packing up, but I kept looking over my shoulder at that mound. The dirt was so dark. The shoe was so small. And that smell, damp earth and rot, it stayed in my nose the whole time. I told myself maybe they were right. Maybe it was just a stupid prank. But I didn't believe it. Not really. And an hour later, when we walked past that spot again, I found out why. And then we went down to the creek to wash up. Just for a few minutes. Splashed some water on our faces. Tried to pretend everything was normal. Jake kept talking about getting breakfast at that diner near the highway. I wasn't listening. We came back to camp. Started making coffee on the little stove. And then I looked over at the mound. The sneaker was gone. I stopped. I said, "Where is it?" Jake looked up. Said, "Where's what?" "The shoe. The blue sneaker is not there anymore." He walked over. Mike followed. We stood around the spot. The dirt was still there. Same dark, wet mound. But no shoe. Not even a hole where it had been. The earth looked completely untouched. Like nothing had ever stuck out of it. I mean, you could still see the shape of the mound. But the top was smooth. No hole. No indentation. Nothing. Mike went pale. I mean white. Like he'd seen a ghost, he whispered that someone must have taken it while we were at the creek. Jake nodded. He said, "Yeah, maybe someone took it." But his voice was shaking, like you could hear it, the crack in his words. I said, "Who would take a dirty kid's sneaker out of a dirt pile? And why would they smooth it over? That doesn't make any sense." No one answered. I pulled out my phone, a Nokia. Old school. No signal, of course. I tried anyway. Nothing. The birds had stopped singing. I didn't notice it at first, but then I did. Total silence. No birds, no wind. Just the creek in the distance. And it sounded wrong. Too loud. Like it was trying to fill the emptiness. And there was a smell. Something sour. Like sweat. Or fear. I don't know how to describe it. But it was there, in the air, all around us. Jake said we should pack up and leave. Right now, no breakfast, no diner, just go. Mike agreed. Fast. I said, "What about the police?" Jake looked at me. His eyes were wide. He said, "And tell them what? A shoe that disappeared? A dirt pile that fixed itself? They'll think we're crazy." He was right. And that made it worse. So anyway, we started throwing stuff in the car. The tent half folded, the sleeping bag still damp. I didn't care. I just wanted out. But I kept looking back at that mound. The dirt was still there. Dark, wet, empty. And then, as I turned to grab my backpack, I heard something from the trees. Not a footstep, not a voice. Just a shift, like something heavy moving behind the leaves. Mike heard it too. He froze. He said, "Let's go, now." We ran to the ford. Jake started the engine. The radio didn't work. None of us spoke. I looked out the window as we pulled away. The mound was still there, alone in the clearing, waiting. And I swear to God, I saw something move near the tree line. Small, fast, gone before I could focus. We were almost done packing. I mean, the tent was down. The bags were in the back. Jake was kicking dirt over the fire pit. Mike was looking for his phone? He said he left it by the cooler. And then we heard it, a laugh, high-pitched, like a kid. But wrong, too high, too clear. It came from the trees, maybe 30 yards away. We all froze. I looked at Jake. He looked at Mike. No one moved. And then it came again. Same laugh, same pitch, but closer. I whispered, "What the hell is that?" No one answered. Then footsteps, fast, small, like a child running, through dry leaves, snap, 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 coming toward us. Jake dropped the shovel. It hit the ground hard. The laugh came again, right at the edge of the trees. I couldn't see anything, just shadows and branches. Mike said we need to go, now. We ran. I left my backpack. Jake left his jacket. We just ran for the ford. The gravel was loud under our feet. The laugh followed us, not from one place anymore, moving, circling, like it was playing. I got to the car first, yelled at Jake for the keys. He was fumbling, dropped them, picked them up. The laugh was closer now, and the footsteps, small, fast, in the leaves behind us. Mike wasn't there. I turned around. He was still by the tent, grabbing his phone off the ground. I screamed his name. He looked up. His face was white. Then he ran. He got to the car just as Jake started the engine. Mike jumped in the back. His hands were shaking. He said he saw something by the creek, a small figure, just standing there, watching. I said, "What kind of figure?" He just shook his head, wouldn't talk. Jake floored it. The tires spun on the gravel. We hit the main road. I looked back through the rear window. The campsite was gone. The trees were just trees. But I swear I heard that laugh one more time. Faint, from the tree line. And then we saw the sign. Slade 5 Mile. Jake pulled out his phone. Got a signal. He called the police. His voice was calm, too calm. He said there might be a missing child in the forest. He gave them the location. The dispatcher said they'd send someone. We drove in silence. No music, no talking. Just the road and the trees. And then Mike spoke. He said it wasn't a child. The thing by the creek. It wasn't a child at all. I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. Just stared out the window. And I didn't ask again, because I already knew. Whatever laughed at us in those trees, it wasn't human, and it wasn't done with us yet. So anyway, the police searched the forest. Took them a few hours. They found the mound. Empty, like we said. And one sneaker, blue with a white stripe, just sitting on the ground about 50 yards away. No dirt on it, no footprints around it, like someone had placed it there. They never found a body, never found a child. No footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. The officer told us it was probably just some campers messing around. He said we shouldn't worry about it. I asked about the footsteps, about the laughter. He just looked at me, said, people hear things in the woods. Case closed. We drove home in silence. Jake sold the Ford Explorer a month later. Said he couldn't sit in it without feeling sick. Mike and I never talked about that night. Not really. A few awkward texts, and nothing. You know how it goes. Some things are too heavy to carry with other people. But here's the thing. I'm 30 now. This was years ago. And I still can't sleep with the window open. Because sometimes, late at night, I hear footsteps on the gravel outside my house. Soft, slow, circling, just like before. I get up. I look through the curtain. The rustle of the fabric sounds so loud in the quiet. And there's nothing there. Just the street light. Just the empty driveway. But the footsteps keep going. I've moved 3 times since 2009. Different cities, different apartments. It doesn't matter. They always come back. always at night, always when I'm almost asleep. I don't tell people this anymore. They think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But you know that feeling when someone is standing right outside your window? When you can feel them watching? That's my life now. So anyway, that's the story. 3 friends, a tent, a sneaker in the dirt, and something that followed me home. I still hear it sometimes. Right now, actually. Hold on. Did you hear that? So anyway, we were trying to fix things. Amy and me. You know how it is when you've been together for almost 8 years and suddenly you're more like roommates than anything else. So she found this campsite online. Remote, she said. Just the 2 of us. No phones, no distractions. I mean, it sounded okay. A weekend in the woods. What could go wrong? It was 2011. I remember because Adele was everywhere. Rolling in the Deep kept playing on the radio during the drive up in my Ford Explorer. Amy was fiddling with the GPS, and I was pretending I knew where we were going. The trees got thicker. The road turned to gravel. And then the gravel turned to dirt. That smell. Damp earth, wet pine needles. The kind of air that feels cold in your lungs. We set up the tent just before sunset. Nothing fancy. Just a cheap dome tent we'd bought back when we thought camping would be our thing. It wasn't. But that night, it felt almost nice. Amy made coffee on the little stove. We talked about work, about her mom, about nothing important. I guess we were both trying. I fell asleep first. I remember that much. But somewhere in the middle of the night, I woke up. Not fully. Just enough to hear something. A rustle. Outside the tent. Close, like someone brushing their hand against the nylon. I lay there for a few seconds. Listening. Nothing else, just the wind, maybe. I didn't wake Amy. I told myself it was probably just a squirrel or something. I didn't know then that the silence of the woods wasn't empty. It was just waiting for us to fall asleep. I rolled over and closed my eyes. And I remember thinking, right before I drifted off, that the air inside the tent smelled different now. Colder. Like someone had opened the flap. But I was tired. And anyway, we were alone out there, right? So I let it go. And then I woke up to cold air. That's the first thing I remember. Not a sound, not a voice. Just this heavy cold on my face, like someone had opened a window in the middle of December. But we were in a tent. So I opened my eyes. The flap was unzipped, and Rob was gone. I sat up so fast, my head spun. The sleeping bag was empty next to me. Still warm, but empty. I called his name. Soft at first. Like maybe he'd just stepped outside to pee or something. No answer. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels thick, you know? Like something's pressing on your ears. I grabbed the headlamp. The beam lit up the tent walls, green nylon, empty. My heart was already going. I unzipped the flap the rest of the way and crawled out. The cold hit me hard. No moon. Just trees and dark. And then I saw him. Rob was standing about 15 feet from the tent, barefoot, in his t-shirt and sweatpants, facing the trees, not moving, just standing there. His back was to me. I said his name again, louder this time. Rob. Nothing. I could hear my own footsteps on the pine needles as I walked toward him. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Like he should have heard me. But he didn't turn around. When I got close, I reached out and touched his shoulder. He blinked. Like a computer rebooting. His head turned, and his eyes were glassy at first. Then he saw me. And he said, I swear, he said, what? I asked him what he was doing. He looked down at his bare feet, then at the tent, then back at me, and he said he didn't know. He didn't remember getting up, didn't remember unzipping the tent. Nothing. I guess I laughed. Not because it was funny, because I was scared and I didn't want to be. I told him he must have been sleepwalking. People do that under stress, right? The relationship stuff, the woods, the weird air. It makes sense. He nodded, rubbed his arms, said yeah, probably. We went back inside. I zipped the flap tight, but I couldn't stop looking at the nylon wall, listening. Silence. Just our breathing. And then, I don't know, I felt it. That feeling of being watched from the other side of the tent, close. Rob whispered that he was sorry. He joked that at least he didn't walk into a tree. I almost laughed it off. Almost. But I didn't turn off the headlamp, and I didn't close my eyes again. Morning came slow and gray. I didn't sleep after Rob went back to the tent. Just lay there staring at the nylon above me, listening to him breathe. But yeah, eventually the sun came up. Pine trees, birds, the whole normal woods thing. Except nothing felt normal anymore. We packed in silence. I remember the smell of Rob's old hoodie. Musty, like he'd left it in the car too long. And the pine needles sticking to everything. I was rolling up my sleeping bag when my fingers hit something flat. Under the pad. Folded. I pulled it out. It was a piece of paper. Cheap, like from a coloring book. And it smelled like wax crayons. That sweet, waxy smell you remember from being a kid. But we didn't have kids with us. There were no other campers nearby. I mean, we checked. The ranger said the next site was almost 2 miles away. I unfolded it, and then I couldn't breathe for a second. It was a drawing, a green tent, like ours. 2 stick figures inside. One with longer hair, me, I guess. The other one shorter, Rob, and then a third figure, drawn just outside the tent flap. No face. Just a big scribbled circle where the head should be. Black, heavy, like someone pressed down hard enough to almost tear the paper. I said Rob's name. He was outside packing the cooler. He came back in. I showed him the drawing. His face went pale. He said he didn't draw it. He swore. I mean, I believed him. He's not an artist. And anyway, why would he? I asked if maybe he did it while sleepwalking. He shook his head, said he'd never done anything like that before. He didn't even know where crayons would come from. So anyway, I tried to think. Maybe some kid from another campsite played a prank. Wandered over while we were asleep, left it under the pad. There's nobody around, but maybe. I almost convinced myself. Kids are weird, right? They do stuff like that. But the paper was folded perfectly, and it was under my sleeping pad. Not on top, not outside. Under. You'd have to unzip the tent, reach under me while I slept, and tuck it there. Without waking me. Rob said we should leave. I said no. I didn't want to be the kind of couple who runs away from a stupid drawing. I put it in my jacket pocket. Told myself it was nothing. But my stomach was already dropping. And I couldn't stop looking at that third figure. No face, just standing there outside the flap, waiting. You know, I still thought we could fix it. The weekend, I mean. The whole thing. Like if we just pushed through, went on a hike, acted normal, then the drawing would stop meaning anything. So I told Rob we weren't leaving. He didn't argue. He just nodded. Distant, already distant. And then we hit the trail. It was supposed to be a loop, maybe 4 miles. The ranger at the entrance had given us a map and one of those trail marker ribbons. Bright orange, tied to a branch. I remember shoving it in my pocket. My flip phone was in there too. No signal. Of course, no signal. 2011, middle of nowhere. You couldn't just Google your way out of a bad feeling. The first half hour was fine. Birds. Wind. Rob walking ahead of me, not saying much. I tried to make small talk. He gave one-word answers. I guess I couldn't blame him. Neither of us had really slept. And then I saw the tree. It was an old pine, maybe 20 feet off the trail. And someone had drawn on it, with crayon. Crude faces, just circles with X's for eyes, and arrows, pointing deeper into the woods, away from the trail. I stopped. Rob kept walking. I called his name. He came back, looked at the tree and shrugged. Said it was probably just graffiti. Kids from town, you know. Teenagers messing around. I wanted to believe him. But the crayon was the same color as the drawing, that waxy green. And the faces, they didn't have mouths, just X eyes. Like the third figure from the tent, no face, just nothing. I said we should follow the arrows. Rob said no. His voice was sharp. I've never heard him sharp like that. He said we should go back to camp. I argued. I don't know why. Maybe I needed proof. Something solid. A person, a kid, anything to explain it. But the air smelled wrong. Rot. Like something had died nearby and the wind was carrying it. And my own jacket smelled sour from sweat. Old food from the cooler. Everything felt sticky and wrong. We turned back. Early. Way early. Rob didn't look at me the whole walk. When we got to camp, he sat in the car with the doors locked. Just sat there, staring at nothing. I made coffee. I didn't drink it. That night, I waited until he fell asleep. Then I reached into my bag and took out the pocket knife I'd packed for emergencies. The little red one. I hid it inside my sleeping bag, right next to my hip. And then I lay there in the dark, listening, waiting for footsteps that weren't his. Like I knew he would do it again. I could feel it. The way he kept staring at the tent flap before bed. The way his hands shook when he zipped it shut. But yeah, I pretended to sleep. I got comfortable. Slowed my breathing, kept the knife under my hip. Rob lay next to me for maybe an hour. His breathing was all wrong. Too fast, then too slow. I mean, I almost said something. But I wanted to catch him. That sounds bad. I wanted to see what he did when he thought I wasn't watching. And then, around 2 a.m., I think, he moved. Not a lot. Just his hand, reaching for the zipper. Slow, like someone else was moving his arm. The sound of the zipper was so loud in the silence. Crack of the teeth separating. I held my breath. He sat up, put his feet on the ground, barefoot, same as before. Then he stood up and walked out. I waited 3 seconds, counted. Then I grabbed the headlamp and followed. The lamp flickered when I turned it on. Low battery or something. The beam kept cutting out. I hit it against my palm and it stayed on for a few seconds, then started flickering again, like, great. Perfect timing. Rob was already walking, barefoot on pine needles and twigs. Every step made that cracked sound, but he didn't flinch. He walked to a fallen log about 50 feet from the tent, stopped, faced the dark trees. I got closer, slowly. The headlamp flickered again. In the dark between flashes, he looked like a shadow, not real. When I was about 10 feet away, I heard it. A whisper. He was whispering something. But I couldn't make out the words. Not English, I don't think. Just sounds. Soft, like he was talking to someone standing right in front of him. But there was no one there. Just trees and dark and cold. His eyes were open, glassy, like a doll's eyes. I said his name. No response. Louder. Nothing. So I touched his shoulder. Same as before. He screamed. Not a shout. A scream. High and raw. He fell backward off the log, scrambling on the ground, looking at me like he didn't know who I was. Then he started sobbing. I mean, ugly sobbing. Hands over his face. I grabbed him, held him, asked what happened. He said, between sobs, he said he dreamed of a tall man with no face, standing outside the tent, just standing. And the man was whispering to him, telling him to walk, telling him to come closer. I asked what the man wanted. Rob looked at me. His face was pale. His feet were cold against my legs. And he whispered, "He wants to come inside." We ran back to the tent. I didn't zip it shut. I just threw everything in the bags and told Rob we were leaving at first light. He nodded, sat in the corner, shivering. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and the headlamp stayed on, flickering, flickering, waiting for the batteries to die. Dawn came, gray and cold. I hadn't slept. Neither had Rob. He just sat there in the corner of the tent, knees to his chest, staring at the flap. I was already packing, throwing clothes into bags, not folding anything, just grabbing. And then I felt it. Something crinkled against my stomach, inside my sleeping bag. I hadn't put anything in there. I knew that. The knife was still in my hand, but there was paper, right against my skin. I pulled it out. Another drawing, same green tent, same 2 stick figures. But the third figure, the one with no face, wasn't outside the flap anymore. It was drawn inside the tent, between me and Rob. And its head wasn't just a circle anymore. It was a black scribble, heavy, dark, like someone had pushed the crayon until the paper almost ripped. I couldn't breathe. Rob looked up, saw my face, reached for the paper. When he saw it, he just broke. He didn't scream, didn't cry. He just made this sound, a low moan, like an animal. He grabbed his hair and pulled. I said his name. He didn't answer. So anyway, I moved. Fast. I threw the sleeping bags in the trunk. The tent, I didn't even fold it. Just ripped the stakes out and shoved the whole thing in the back. Rob followed me like a ghost, got in the passenger seat, stared at the dashboard. The car door made that metallic sound when I slammed it. Loud, final. I started the Ford Explorer, 2011. Empty energy drink can in the cup holder from the drive up. I remember looking at it and thinking, that was 2 days ago. 2 days? Felt like years. We drove, fast. Dirt road to gravel. Gravel to pavement. No music, just silence. Rob didn't speak. I didn't either. I just stared at the road. My hands were shaking on the wheel. And then, on the highway, I glanced in the rearview mirror. There was something in the back seat. A shape, dark, tall, no face. I swerved. Tires screeched. Rob grabbed the door handle. I looked again. It was just a jacket. My jacket. Thrown over the cooler. Just a jacket. But my heart was slamming. And Rob, he didn't even look at me. He just kept staring at the glove box. His lips were moving, whispering something. I couldn't hear what, and I didn't ask. He didn't speak the whole ride home, not one word. So anyway, we got back to the apartment. The city, traffic, normal sounds. I thought maybe it would stop there. You know, like the woods had some kind of hold on us. But once we left, it would let go. It didn't. Rob moved into the guest room that first night. Didn't say anything, just took his pillow and walked out. I didn't argue. I mean, I didn't want to be in the same room either. Not after what he whispered in the car. 3 nights passed. Nothing happened. No drawings. No sleepwalking. I almost convinced myself it was over. But yeah, I still slept with the lights on. Every night. Then last night, or 3 nights ago, I'm losing track. I woke up to a sound. Snap. The door latch, our bedroom door. It was open. I always close it. Always. I sat up. The hallway was dark. The light from my bedside lamp didn't reach that far. I called Rob's name. No answer. I got up. My feet were cold on the floor. The air smelled sour. That fear sweat smell. My own. I walked to the doorway, looked down. There was a drawing on the floor. Fresh. Same crayon colors. Green, black, red. It showed our apartment. The bed. 2 stick figures lying down. And a third figure, standing in the doorway. No face, just that black scribble. I screamed. Rob came running from the guest room. He looked at the drawing. His face went gray. He said he didn't do it. He swore. And I believed him, because he was as scared as I was. I called the police on my Nokia phone. 2011, still had the charger plugged in by the bed. They came, 2 officers. They searched the whole apartment, under the bed, the closets, the fire escape. Nothing. No one. One of them said it was probably a stress reaction, suggested therapy. They left. Rob went back to the guest room, locked the door. I heard the lock turn. I'm sitting here now, in bed, lights on. The drawing is on the nightstand. I can't throw it away. I've tried. Every time I throw it in the trash, it's back on the floor by morning. And the door keeps opening. Snap. I just heard it again. But Rob is asleep. I checked. So I'm writing this with the lights on. And I'm not closing my eyes. I don't think it wants the woods anymore. I think it came home with us. So anyway, this was back in 2012. I had that old Subaru Outback, the one with the peeling paint and the seat heater that only worked on the passenger side. I drove up to the trailhead around 4 in the afternoon. The snow was already a few inches deep, but the road was plowed just enough. I'd been planning this solo trip for weeks. Just one night. Get away from everything. I parked, grabbed my pack, and hiked in about a mile. Found a nice flat spot near some pines. The air smelled so clean, that sharp pine smell, like Christmas, but colder. I set up my tent, cooked some ramen on my little stove, and sat there watching the light fade. It was almost too quiet. No wind, no cars, no birds, just silence. And I remember thinking how peaceful it was. I didn't know then that the silence outside my tent was the worst part. Because silence means something is listening back. Anyway, I crawled into my sleeping bag around 9. I left the tent flap open for a while, just staring up at the trees. The half-empty bottle of Gatorade was next to my head. I'd been sipping it all evening. I was tired but happy, Like that deep, earned tiredness after a long day outside. I zipped the tent closed, listened to the nothing for a minute. Then I whispered to myself, probably just the altitude, and laughed a little. My ears were popping from the drive. That had to be it. I turned off my headlamp. The dark was complete. Not like in the city, total, heavy dark. I closed my eyes and started to drift. And then I heard something, a soft rustle outside. I told myself it was the snow settling, but my hand was already on my knife. And then I woke up. I don't know what pulled me out of sleep, but my eyes were open, and I was staring at the dark ceiling of my tent. My heart was already beating fast for no reason. That happens sometimes, right? You just snap awake. But then I heard it, a zipper rasp, slow, deliberate, from the outside of my tent. Someone was unzipping my door. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The rasp stopped for a second, then started again. Lower this time, like they were trying to be quiet, but the zipper was too loud in the cold. And then, like my body just reacted. I screamed. Not a little yelp, a full, throat-tearing scream. The zipping stopped immediately. Silence. I was clutching my sleeping bag, my other hand grabbing for my knife. My headlamp was somewhere by my feet. I didn't dare reach for it. Then I heard crunch, 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 running away. Fast, heavy footsteps breaking through the snow. I laid there for what felt like an hour. My ears were ringing from my own scream. I could hear my heartbeat. That's it. No wind. No animal calls. Nothing. I whispered to myself. Like maybe a raccoon or a deer. But I didn't believe it. Raccoons don't unzip tents, and deer don't run on 2 feet. I turned my head slowly toward the tent door. The zipper pull was still. I could see the faint outline of it against the mesh. It was halfway down. I grabbed my black diamond headlamp. My fingers were shaking so bad I dropped it twice. I finally got it on, but I didn't open the tent. I just sat there in the red light, holding my knife, listening. The crunching had stopped, but now there was nothing. No retreating sounds fading into the distance. Just gone. I thought about yelling out, asking who was there, but my throat was closed up. I couldn't make words. I checked my watch. 2:17 a.m. My REI half-dome tent suddenly felt like paper, like someone could just rip through it. I stayed frozen. Every few minutes, I heard a tiny sound. My own sleeping bag rustling, my own breath. And I kept telling myself it was probably nothing. Probably some drunk hunter who got lost and thought my tent was his. But I knew. I knew that zipper was pulled from the outside. And I knew whatever ran away didn't make a single sound after it stopped crunching. I didn't sleep. I just stared at that zipper, waiting for it to move again. I mean, I didn't move for hours. Not really. I shifted once to check my Casio watch. 2:17 a.m., then again at 3:04, then 4:30. Time just crawled. I sat there with my back against my sleeping bag, knife in my right hand, headlamp off. The dark was so thick I couldn't see my own knees. But I didn't want light. Light would have let something outside know I was awake. The tent was cold now. My breath made little clouds, and I could hear dripping. Condensation from my breath freezing on the inside of the fly, then melting just enough to fall. Drip, drip, drip. Every drop made me flinch. And my heart, I could hear it in my ears. Thump, thump, thump. So loud I thought maybe someone outside could hear it too. But outside, nothing. No wind, no branches cracking, no owls, no coyotes. Just dead, complete silence. Like the whole forest was holding its breath. I kept telling myself, it was probably just some drunk hunter. Yeah, that's what I repeated in my head. Some idiot who got lost, thought my tent was his, then ran off when I screamed. Made sense, right? But then I'd think, hunters carry flashlights. I didn't see any light through the tent walls, and they'd yell something, apologize, not just run. I tried to listen for footsteps coming back, for breathing outside the nylon, for anything, nothing. Just the dripping, and my heartbeat. At some point, maybe 5 a.m., I started to relax a tiny bit. My shoulders unclenched, my fingers loosened on the knife. I thought, okay, whoever it was is gone. They ran away, I'm fine. But then I heard a rustle, right outside the tent wall, behind my head. I froze again, held my breath. The rustle stopped. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, a minute. Nothing. I told myself it was snow sliding off a branch, or my own sleeping bag shifting, something normal. But I didn't turn around. I just stared at the tent door, waiting for that zipper to move again. Drip, heartbeat, drip. And then I heard something else. Something I couldn't explain. A whisper. So faint I thought I imagined it, not words, just breath, right on the other side of the nylon. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them again, the sun was starting to turn the tent wall gray. I had survived the night, but I didn't feel safe. I felt like something had been watching me the whole time, and I still had to unzip that door myself. So anyway, I looked down and unzipped the tent. My hand was shaking so bad, I had to try twice. The zipper rasped, that same sound from 2 a.m., and I flinched. But I pulled it open anyway. The morning light was gray and flat, no sun yet. Just that cold, pale light that makes everything look washed out. I stuck my head out first, looking left, then right. Nothing, just trees and snow. I crawled out on my hands and knees. The snow was maybe 4 inches deep. Cold soaked through my pants immediately. I stood up slow, still holding my knife. And then I saw it, my own footprints. A clear line coming from the trail right up to my tent. Just mine. The tread pattern from my boots. I knew it. No other footprints, none. No tracks leading away from the tent except mine going in. But the snow around the tent, completely smeared, like someone had walked in circles for hours, back and forth, around and around. The snow wasn't just disturbed, it was churned up, packed down, kicked into weird ridges. A big oval shape, maybe 10 feet wide, surrounding my tent. I remember tasting something metallic in my mouth. That fear taste, like biting a coin. I looked closer. There were no boot prints in the smeared area, no shoe prints, no animal tracks, just chaos, as if something had dragged itself in circles, or paced without feet. I spotted my broken tent stake, the one I'd left outside the night before, the plastic one with the orange cap. It was snapped in half, lying right in the middle of the smeared snow. I didn't remember stepping on it. I backed away. My heart was pounding again, but my voice came out real calm. I said out loud, maybe the snow melted and refroze weird. That happens, right? Temperature changes, wind. It could look like this. But I didn't believe it. I walked around the tent slowly. The smeared area was everywhere. Under the vestibule, behind the tent. Even where the ground sloped down toward a big pine tree, the snow was all messed up. And here's the thing. I could see where my own footprints entered the tent last night. They were crisp, clean edges from when I'd gone to bed at 9. But the smeared snow, it was on top of everything, like it happened after I went inside. I knelt down and touched the churned snow. It was hard, packed down like someone had walked the same path 100 times. My hand was shaking again. I stood up and looked at the trees. The forest was dead quiet. No birds, no wind. Just that damp earth smell rising from where the snow had been kicked away. I told myself again. Wind, animal, something normal. But I knew. That zipper was pulled from the outside, and something had circled my tent for hours without leaving a single footprint. I turned around slowly, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching me, from somewhere just out of sight. I mean, like, seriously, you know? I stood there for a solid minute just staring at the snow. My brain was trying to catch up. So anyway, I pulled out my iPhone 4S. Battery was at 40%. I started taking photos. Click, click, click. The smeared snow. The broken tent stake. My own footprints going in. The empty space where no tracks came out. I walked around the whole tent again. The smeared area was maybe 10 feet wide. A perfect oval. Like someone had paced back and forth, around and around, for hours. But no footprints. None. I knelt down again. There was a faint smell. Rot, like something had been buried under the snow and was starting to turn. Not strong, just a hint. I told myself it was just wet earth, decomposing leaves. But my stomach turned anyway. I tried to make sense of it. Okay, I thought. Wind. Strong wind could have done this, swirled the snow around in circles. But there was no wind last night, not a breath. I remembered that silence. Maybe an animal, a deer bedding down. They kick around, right? But deer leave hoof prints, and they don't circle a tent for hours, and they don't unzip zippers. I looked at the tent door. The zipper pull was still halfway down from when I'd screamed. I reached out and touched it. Cold metal. It moved easy, smooth. Someone had definitely pulled it. From the outside, I stood there in the gray light, holding my granola bar wrapper. I'd eaten one for breakfast without even thinking. The wrapper crinkled in my hand. Rustle. My own jacket rustled when I moved. I started laughing a little. Not funny, ha ha ha. Just nervous. Like maybe I dreamed the zipper part. Yeah. Maybe I woke up from a nightmare and imagined the whole thing. The zipper, the running, the whisper. I mean, I was alone, in the woods, tired. Your mind plays tricks, right? But the snow, the smeared snow was real. I had photos. I looked at my phone again, 40% battery. I thought about calling someone. But who? What would I even say? Hey, I think someone circled my tent, but there's no footprints. I turned in a slow circle. The trees were still. No birds, no wind. Just that faint rot smell. I whispered to myself. Okay, maybe it was a snowdrift collapsing, melting and refreezing weird. That could explain the churned look. But the zipper, I touched it again, definitely pulled. I looked down at my own footprints leading to the tent, then at the smeared oval, then at the trees. Something didn't fit. None of my explanations fit. And then I heard a rustle behind me, not my jacket. I spun around, nothing. Just the tent and the snow. But for a second, I swear, I thought I saw a spot in the smeared snow where something had been dragged away, toward the trees. I didn't go look. I just stood there, phone in one hand, granola bar in the other, telling myself it was nothing. But I didn't believe it anymore. And then it hit me. Oh God, I stopped lying. I was standing there in the snow, phone in my hand, trying to come up with one more excuse. Wind, animal, snowdrift, my own tired brain. But none of them worked. Because the zipper was pulled from the outside. I heard it. I felt it. And the snow around my tent was smeared in circles, hours of circles, with no footprints. No footprints in, no footprints out. Except mine. Just mine going in. That meant something was already there, before I even set up my tent. Or it came after I fell asleep. And it stayed, circling, pacing, for hours, while I slept, while I lay there holding my knife, thinking I was alone. I wasn't alone. I was never alone. And then, crack. A branch snapped, far away, somewhere in the trees behind me. I spun around. My hoodie was soaked with sweat, that sour smell, adrenaline sweat. I could smell my own unwashed hoodie. When was the last time I washed it? I didn't care. I was shaking. My heart was slamming against my ribs. I looked at the tent, my sleeping bag inside, my stove, my food bag. Leave it. I grabbed my boots, already on, my phone, my keys in my jacket pocket. That's it. I ran, not walked, ran. I slipped on the packed snow, caught myself, kept running. My breath came in gasps. My legs were burning. I didn't pack the tent. I didn't take the poles down. I just left it there. Half open, sleeping bag inside, my granola bar wrapper on the ground. I ran down the trail. My own footprints from yesterday were still there, frozen hard. I followed them, slipping, falling once, getting up. My car, I need my car, the trailhead. I saw the Subaru. I hit the unlock button from 50 feet away. The lights blinked. I threw myself inside, locked the doors, started the engine. I sat there for a second, breathing. The heater blew cold air. I looked in the rearview mirror. The trail, empty. Trees, snow, no one there. But I knew something had been circling my tent, and I didn't even take a photo of the broken branch. I put the car in reverse and peeled out of the lot. I didn't look back, but I heard something, or maybe I imagined it, as I drove away. A crack from the tree line, far away, or maybe right behind me. I mean, you know what? I still don't know why I went to the ranger station. I drove straight there from the trailhead. My hands were still shaking on the wheel. I walked in, and this guy, mid-50s flannel coffee mug, looked up and smiled. I told him everything. The zipper at 2 a.m., the running, the smeared snow with no footprints, the hours of circling. He nodded, took notes, said he'd go check it out. I waited in the parking lot. An hour later, he came back, said he found my tent, still set up, sleeping bag inside. The snow around it was churned up, sure, but he said it could be from wind, or melting and refreezing. Happens all the time, he said. No other footprints, he admitted. Just mine. He smiled politely, told me I probably had a nightmare. The mind plays tricks in the woods, alone, in the dark. He said I was safe. I got a voicemail from him the next day. Case closed, just wildlife. Just wildlife. I drove home, unlocked my door, locked it, checked the windows, then checked them again. That was weeks ago. But I still wake up at 2 a.m. every night. Same time, no alarm, just open eyes. Darkness, and I listen. The refrigerator hums, distant, low. That's the only sound. No wind, no birds, just silence. Too deep silence. I lie there in my bed, staring at my bedroom door, and I wait for the sound of a zipper, or footsteps, or breathing on the other side. Nothing ever comes. But I can't stop listening. I mean, I know what I saw. The snow doesn't lie. Something circled my tent for hours. No tracks in, no tracks out. The ranger didn't believe me. Nobody would. But sometimes, late at night, I hear a soft rustle outside my apartment window. And I don't look, I just pull the covers tighter, and I wait for morning.